Hello and welcome everyone to Rhodes Wellness Podcast. My name is Jameson Dean, an admission specialist here and podcast host here with Rhodes Wellness College. And today we have very special guest, Bea Rhodes. So Bea, could you introduce yourself and maybe tell the people why you're here?
Sure. Hi, Jameson. Nice to see you. Uh, I am Bea Rhodes. I was the founder of Rhodes Wellness College back in 1996. These days, I would consider myself a trauma specialist. I'm still working for the school. I basically help people how to be helpful to other human beings. I turned over the school in 2019 to the current owner, Ben Calling, who's a total sweetheart. We get along really well. He hasn't fired me yet, so I'm still having a really good time.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing, Bea. That's wonderful to hear, and makes a lot of sense. And obviously, the school wouldn't be here without you and your efforts and your care to support and help others along their journey, no matter what it is. And through the grapevine over the years, this journey you went through in the 90s was pretty impactful for you in terms of what you were realizing people were in need of. Can you tell me more about really how the school was created, what prompted your reason to really start developing programs and classes around counseling work, life skills work, and so on?
Definitely. I actually like to talk about this. So, my educational background, I have a master's degree from UBC. My real education, though, was I started my career in the prison system, and I spent about 10 years working with people who had some difficulties, let's say, early on in life. I was teaching life skills at the time you mentioned life skills. And what I discovered is that people didn't really care what I had to say, particularly. It sounds really hokey until they knew how much I cared. I know that's an old quote, but I realized that if they knew that, if they felt that I had some investment in them, everything shifted. And that was such a powerful education for me. I went in there believing that I was going to be working with these horrible people and I'd have to be so careful. And it really wasn't like that at all. And working with what, and I was working with federal offenders and working with what people would describe as, the worst that Canada has. They were not really that bad. They were just young guys who had, terrible life experiences, bad childhoods, not a lot of advantages. And it was really transformational for me more than anything. So my education for UBC was wonderful. I learned how to read and write and think critically and research. And I think uh, public education is fantastic for all of those reasons. What happened for me is that starting in around the early 90s, I started to spend some time teaching different courses in private education. And I kept seeing the same kinds of things. Students were really good. They could learn the theories, but they just didn't know how to sit with somebody. They didn't know how to be in the same room if somebody was in pain. And I started thinking about my prison experience, and I thought, I can bring that into the community. I can bring that sense of, hey, I care about you. I can connect with you. And that's pretty much how it started. I can talk more, or do you have another question? I don't want to talk too much.
Well, I think a lot of people are interested to know like why Rhodes exists in the way that it does today, and what you did to build it into what it was in 2019 when you stepped aside, and why it turned into what it is today. And that's an incredible story to begin with. But what happened from let's say 2000 to like 2015, for example? Like how did all of the Rhodes programs build, and how were they implemented, and how did things build into what they are today with hundreds of ongoing and current students and very successful graduates?
Well, it's interesting you asked me what happened from 2000 because we'd been operating for about 4 years by then, and I really wanted to introduce a more holistic model. That was, it just seemed to me so logical. And one of the biggest influences back then, we had a lot of Indigenous students, and they had taught me the medicine wheel, which is really simply put, it's our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health and wellness. And it made so much sense. It was simple, but it was also complete. And it really became a foundation for how, and to this day, how we train our counselors. And it's not a model that you'll find, anywhere else. We created it ourselves. And this is why I think, I'll just say it really bluntly, I don't think counseling and academia are a good mix. I know, because I did the whole academic thing. And what we do is we teach people how to be with other people. My degree taught me how to think, and I loved it. But there's something very, very, very special about the ability to be able to help somebody really heal, and that's what we are teaching our students to do.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is your love for meeting people on a deep level with exactly where they're at today, from a very heart-centered, client-focused point of view. That is not so clinical, and that is not so, I've said theory. It's meeting them as a human, as you're another fellow human, exactly where they're at in this moment, in this second, with what's coming up for them and what is most pressing for them, and to create that space to help them feel comfortable in sharing exactly what's on their mind or on their heart, that's say bothering them in some way, versus potentially a very clinical approach, that potentially a more clinical journey would focus on, like a master's in counseling, for example, versus our professional counseling program that is very holistic and focuses on the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional sides of the client, more specifically. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm saying. It's not that we don't teach regular stuff. It's not that, like, we don't teach the theories and the methods and the what is evidence-based therapy. We teach that as well, but we have to stop ignoring the all of the other stuff that's out there that's very powerful and maybe doesn't have as much science base to it. But when we're doing the research, who are we researching? We're researching, people like us. We have so many immigrants and so many different cultures we're working with now. And, Canada is this gorgeous melting pot of different people with different backgrounds. And I love the fact that we can learn from other cultures how healing happens in their culture. And I've said this for years, but I'll just say it here on your podcast, that people hurt people and people heal people.
Yeah.
And community adds that extra special thing. So all of our training is done in a cohort, in a group. So
Mhm.
you're with a group of people throughout the whole educational experience. You get to know and love and trust, or, not love and trust. I mean, it's not always magic, but you get to know your classmates often better than your best friends or your family. It's kind of a very sacred bond that people can create. And I think it's the most powerful healing opportunity. The other thing I wanted to mention, just to expand a little bit on that community piece. So, we can sit one on one and you can really empathize with me and we can have this incredible connection, and I can do some healing and heal my attachment wounds because you're very empathetic. It's more powerful if we're in a group because there's a lot of other people who are witnessing me, and the healing is exponential if the group is safe enough. So I'm a big fan, and I'm a really, really big fan of a well done group that's safe, and people get to experience what it's like to be unconditionally loved. So many of our students and so many people in general Can I keep talking?
You may. This is wonderful.
Okay. Grow up in situations where we call it complex trauma. There's difficulties at home. They may have there may be abuse and neglect in the home, or parental dysfunction. Perhaps somebody's gone to prison, or somebody has mental health issues, or more commonly, parents have not healed their own trauma. So whatever I haven't healed, I kind of accidentally, not on purpose, share with my children. And so we're living in this world where we're sort of forced to suit up and hide what's underneath. But so many people grow up in situations where it's not safe. And there's research done in the early 1990s. The research was around physical health outcomes and how come people were getting heart disease and cancer and strokes and dementia, and obesity was another issue. And they found, not surprisingly, maybe to us, but surprisingly to them, that those physical health outcomes were directly connected to how many what we call adverse childhood experiences these people had. So that was very powerful research, and before that it had never we hadn't really connected the dots, but now we can connect the dots. So not only are there mental health outcomes from having a difficult childhood, but there are also all these physical health outcomes, and you and I know how that goes. But yeah, so it was very interesting. So not only healing these childhood wounds, and not just childhood wounds, but adult wounds, is so important, not only for our mental health, but also for the healthcare system. We're dealing with people who are eating their feelings, who are in just putting on a happy face, but going home and drinking themselves into oblivion every night, or being violent with their family, and all those kinds of things. So this is critical stuff, and this is how we heal. We do heal in connection with other people.
Mm. Certainly resonating with what you're saying, because to the idea that it takes a community to help somebody and to really help someone feel seen and heard and have multiple resources available to them. It takes a community, or for example, a cohort, to help somebody grow personally first and foremost, and then also professionally as well, through the journey, whatever that might be, that they describe for themselves. Is therefore the journey to learn and grow, hopefully. And a lot of our students that come to Rhodes are ready to learn and grow personally and professionally, and are brave enough to do that and see sides of themselves.
I like that you said brave, because it does take a little courage for sure. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I love that, and yeah, bravery is a huge point. But is the person willing to look at themselves, for as the outside observer, if I may, to really see themselves as the outside observer, and to see themselves and accept what they've done in their mind that went wrongly, and what they need to even accept, or what they need to do to accept that this has gone poorly, to accept that yes, they did that, but to forgive ourselves for our past wrongdoings, to bring more light into the present moment moving forward. And if there's a class for that, like there often can be space for at Rhodes, or outside of class with counselors or whatever, to then become a better professional, that's some gold, that Rhodes can bring out.
True.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have anything more to add to what you were saying?
In that, I mean, probably, but
Mm-hmm.
I forget what I was saying. I'm not so young anymore. I should. I know I should retire, but just not quite ready. Having too much fun.
Well, yeah, this work is fun because you get to see the joy in other people, to learn and to grow and to change, um, for their own unique way of better for themselves. And that's why I am involved in this work and got into this work very seriously into 2019 and 2020. And I said to myself, I'm doing this because my heart is in it, and my head wants to be in it and my soul wants to be in it. And I just want to go all into having, at least, for example, a foundation of well being knowledge or coaching knowledge or counseling knowledge to put into practice and be paid for or valued for in some way to support my journey moving forward.
I was talking to a graduate the other day, and they had been enrolled in public post secondary. Not to put public post secondary down, I'm really not. I think it's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's where I went to school, and they were studying psychology, and they said that I it didn't feel real. It didn't feel tangible. I didn't even know what I didn't. It didn't make sense. I couldn't connect what I was learning to anything from life. And not to pump up the school that much, but they said when I came here, everything made sense to me because I was working with real people with real problems. I was able to apply what we were learning directly with my classmates, and I came out of this. I feel she said I came out of this a better person from that experience.
Yeah. It's a common, I guess, phenomenon that people that have been through, I guess, more traditional academic educational experiences, there's this warmth to Rhodes, this real life understanding of this. This is how this works in the real world, and this is how we're going to approach it and talk about it and bring it up in class in a safe setting to address it and make that correlation to the research and also to the client and also to you in what you've been through in your life that relates to trauma, for example. And when you complete that loop of understanding, the student can start to really understand that full picture in a personal way and how to apply themselves then therefore in a professional way when they understand these concepts and start to implement them into their classes and into the personal life as well.
Yeah, I can we talk a little bit about career outcomes?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, because I think it's important if people are thinking, well, why would I go to that weird school school that I've been reading up on AI lately.
Mhm.
And AI is basically saying that a lot of the basic stuff is going to be done by there's already AI bots. I don't know if that's the right word. Counseling AI counselors out there.
Yeah.
And they can handle all the basic stuff. So cognitive behavior therapy is very scripted and structured. AI
Mhm.
can put you through that. There's a lot of kind of the basic stuff that AI's. I mean, God knows what the AI is going to take over in 6 months. It's changing. It's a pretty exciting world right now. What AI cannot do is AI cannot create a safe environment for people to say what they need to say. AI cannot heal attachment injuries. AI
Mhm.
cannot help you re-experience your childhood from a healthy perspective. So if I grew up in a family, I don't know how much your listeners know about attachment trauma, but if I grew
Mhm.
up in a family where it was chaotic and I never knew, mom and dad would come home one day, it would be wonderful. The next day I'd be hiding under the bed, or there was this consistent pattern of abuse, or just they just weren't present for me. I developed different kinds of attachment styles. And sadly, these same attachment styles follow me through life. So I grow up and I get into an intimate relationship, and my partner, in a weird way, becomes my parents. We start interacting with each other the same way we grew up in our family of origin. And I expect from my partner behaviors that they may be incapable of providing for me, and then we're in it. Then we're in it. I always tell this story. I had a kind of a avoidant attachment style. That's where My parents were kind of aloof and not very emotionally present for me. And when I first got married, I made my husband, every time I come home from work, I would make my husband rush to the door to greet me. And I thought, what's wrong with that? And then I started thinking about it. I thought, why does he have to like drop everything? He's like the best guy. He would
Mm.
never hurt me. And we did this for years. I mean, we've been married for over 30 years now. Probably the first 20 or so years, I made him drop what he was doing, rush to the door, because I was not going to be in a relationship with somebody who told me directly or indirectly I didn't matter, because that was the message I had growing up.
Mm.
And the I was sitting in a classroom one day and I was telling them in a joking way, yeah, I do this thing. My husband has to drop everything and greet me when I come home from work. And it just like the penny dropped. I thought, oh, that was my wound. That was one of my attachment wounds. And it was so just sort of telling the class and having people, I don't know, be kind and empathetic and nod and understand. It shifted like that. And suddenly he didn't need to drop what he was doing and run up from downstairs and greet me at the door. And funny how that can happen, but it just sometimes it's so unconscious what we're doing, and we're running around, we're just sabotaging our life, we're sabotaging our families, our kids, our partners. And it's largely because we just don't have that awareness of those attachment injuries. They're very powerful. Yeah.
Well, that's just it, and that's what can come up in the classes is to identify, what wounds you have, what attachment styles you have as a person, individual, or student, in the classes, and then you can better identify them in other people and or deeply empathize or sympathize with other people when they bring up theirs as well in session, for example. So I think when Rhodes, student experience goes on, there's that awareness that I've been through that because I talked about it in Rhodes, I wrote about it, did presentations on it because that's what I went through as that attachment style or that need and want to be met to feel safe, for example, to then help that therefore the end of the day client to feel understood because you get it and you empathize with them and then they feel seen and heard, which we're really talking about here, to then help them heal this area of their life and how they can move forward in a different and or better or more supportive way for themselves and then therefore of course their relationships to improve their life.
Can I tell you a quick story of something that we did years and years ago? This was before we went online and we had a little bit
Mm.
more flexibility just in terms of healing. This was a long time ago. So we had a student who um, was in a marriage that had broken up, and her dad had passed away. And before she left the marriage, she had inherited his like recliner, his old recliner chair.
Yeah.
And she left the marriage in a lot of distress, and she didn't. She said, and I never got my dad's chair. And there was a lot of, they weren't talking, and he wasn't going to let that chair go. I don't know what was happening. But some of the students heard her. And this is like, I love this story because it just gives me goosebumps. And they went without her knowledge. They went out and they got that. They had a truck. They went out and they got the chair and they loaded it onto the truck. They brought it into the school, tucked it in the classroom, and then when she came into the classroom, there was her dad's recliner. It was just one of the most beautiful things, and it healed so much for her because wow, these people cared enough to go all the way out of their way, and they realized the importance of that to her. And it was just such a magical, not just her but for everybody, for all of us, it was such a magical moment.
Oh, thank you for sharing. That's an incredible story and very poignant to what we're speaking to that frankly Rhodes allows things like that to happen in a safe, caring, loving space.
I'd like to, I it would be good if we could get more of that. I mean, it's harder online because do it. I mean, I still think we do a
Sure.
lot, but
Yeah.
I'm actually working on our postgraduate training project right now.
Mhm.
So one of the courses that I'm working on, I'm going to be doing a bilateral stimulation EMDR course. I'm already doing a parts work therapy, which is similar to IFS, internal family systems. But the third course that I'm working on is like a group therapy course,
Mm.
and I do believe that uh, one, like I've started to mention about AI, is kind of can do all the basic stuff. So we have to position ourselves
Mm.
to be able to do the deeper work. And so things like doing group therapy, like the somatic stuff, anything experiential is in our wheelhouse. And yeah, so there's lots of opportunity, I think, for graduates, and going to be more opportunity for graduates as AI continues to take over the world. But so far, um, I don't think they can do some of the deeper stuff that we do, especially build healing those attachment wounds.
I hear you loud and clear in that, and I would agree. I think currently, right now, AI can only go so far. And when you're speaking to a human, there's something in that. AI tries to simulate human and try to respond like a human, but in the back of anyone's head, we realize that this is a computer programmed answer, and this isn't a real human hearing us out.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something very special and almost I want to say sacred to saying and speaking this out to a living, breathing, live human
Yes.
versus a robot
Yes.
or wherever it might go.
Mm-hmm.
And if that data is mined and used, poorly, etc., that's a whole different thing. But there's something really beautiful in speaking to another human and paying for that, frankly,
Mm-hmm.
versus just a computer.
Totally.
And I'll just add to this and say I think AI can be used as a tool in certain circumstances.
Yeah, it's not our enemy.
Right. It's not a this black or white, it's bad, it's good. It's more of okay, like calculators back in the day, it can be used as a tool to aid you in what you're trying to accomplish along your journey and to introduce and have humans alongside that too at say more of the forefront. Then in my opinion, great, at least for how I see it.
Yeah, I'm totally on side. And how I think, as I mentioned earlier, how we're moving ahead with this, positioning ourselves, is we're really, really good at being the human in that equation. So, psychoeducation and kind of more structured therapies can be outsourced to AI, but so the having that human connection being, and you have to work on yourself. You have to you have to be clean. You have to know
Mhm.
what your stuff is, so it doesn't get. Otherwise, it can get accidentally dumped on other people. So somebody was talking yesterday about wounded healers, and we do have. I mean, our students are real people, and they come with some pretty. Some of them come with some pretty serious wounds. I like to feel like when we spit them out at the other end, that they're that's generally worked through. I mean, it never goes. These things never. They don't go away. However, I would rather talk to somebody who has had a problem similar to mine and they have worked through it. For me, that rather than somebody just like, okay, I'll say this and do this, like you don't understand what this is like. So yeah, I'm a big fan in using your lived experience. They call it now, the whatever your life experience is. I think you were meant to use this in some way. So particularly that's those of us in the healing arts, whatever happened to you was for a reason. I do believe that.
Yeah.
And to live a really magical life, we have to find what the reason is, and we have to find a way to transform that experience and make it powerful and help other people, whether you're in the helping field or not.
Yeah.
there's a reason for everything.
Yeah, I agree,
Yeah.
100%. It's amazes me almost every day when, I see my past self mirroring himself at me through another person.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I remember him in that situation and how he felt in
Yeah.
this way because it's coming through to me as clear as day. And I know I've done the work on that, but it's coming up to me right now. And sometimes on rare occasions, I'll be a little bit affected by that.
Yes.
And I table it on my shelf behind me and I say, okay, I got to work on that little part
Isn't that smart?
and come back to that in meditation or with my therapist.
The thing is, yeah. Um, Sorry, on that note, I had a colleague tell me years ago, and I repeat this whenever I can think of it. He said, and he had a very, very, very abusive childhood. And he said, you've done your healing when you can go back into your family of origin situation. Everybody's doing exactly what they always did. No one's changed, but you're okay. Isn't that, I think about that all the time. It's a good
Mm,
measure. And not that you have to be okay, but it's, we are where we are, and it helps just a little bit what you just said. It just helps us become aware of, okay, well, that's, when Uncle Joe said that, I can't really react to it. It just really helps us kind of measure our healing, because nobody can trigger you like your family, of course. Yeah.
exactly that. And, I think it's important just to verbalize in this conversation that this sometimes if you don't work on your own stuff that you're going to be affected by, that you chose not to work on for some reason, it's going to create transference, which is a great word to use here,
Yeah.
in session where, they're going to start crying about this. And then, for example, you might start, a counselor, for example, or helper might start crying because of it, because of your own issues. And then you have a client to support.
Yeah. That happened to me not a couple of months ago. I was working with a vet, and he started telling me about having to, trigger warning, euthanize a kitten. And I'm just such a cat person. And I was fine. But I was like, please don't tell me, please don't keep telling me this story. This is just like, I don't want to hear it. Yeah. So it's, it does happen for sure. But yeah, I think more to your point is how important it is to make sure you're, to the best of your ability, that you've done. You don't have to be healed, but you just have to know what the wounds are, so they don't come up and get accidentally projected onto somebody else, or yeah, particularly in session. I would also say that I've worked a lot with a lot of graduates in the last many years, and I'm so proud of them. They're solid, they're kind, they're also so self-aware, so they can, we call it reflective practice. You need to be out there and you need to be working, but you need to be thinking about what you're doing as you're doing it, which is tricky to do. However, they are, yeah, they just kind of know, they know what their issues are. If this school does nothing else, it really helps you know what your stuff is.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's I just love what you say about just even being aware of it. And for example, in session when it comes up and it may create transference, how do you compartmentalize it in that moment, in that split second, to say, okay, I'm going to put that over here for now and come back to it, put a bookmark in it,
Oh, yeah.
and really just focus and be client centered and breathe and ground yourself and do some extra, whatever coping mechanisms to help that client, be the 100% the focus.
And don't you think counselor education is more powerful if we're working on that? Sorry, I mean, not to
Mhm.
down
Yeah.
academic education, but that's more important in a session than, I did all this, I read 25 research articles. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's a good idea. But if we're going to choose what's the most important thing, can I sit with somebody like you just said, Jameson, and recognize when uh, my things come up and be able to not be thrown off my game by them. That to me is everything.
Exactly that, and to highlight, yeah, what makes Rhodes different is that specifically, and you don't necessarily talk about that much, at least from what I understand, in other programs where it's very academic, it's very thesis based, it's very paperwork based, and so on. These types of things don't come up as readily, it seems, in daily class experiences when, for example, 22 cameras are on with a TA and an instructor live for 4.5 hours, Monday to Friday, versus sometimes another program that is cameras off in a lecture for 3 hours, hearing information and then needing to read more information to then write a paper and submit to defend your points, when, to our original point that we started with, you kind of lose the client and lose yourself almost in all of that, I find, it seems, and you miss out on that learning that is so integral to showing up really well for the client, and then also yourself therefore as well.
Well, we know from research and education that the most powerful method of learning is experiential learning.
Mm.
Many, if not most, of our public post-secondary academic institutions are still teaching in a didactic way. And that is going to have to change, I think, pretty soon, because we can access information at the click of a mouse. We can have all of that information right in front of us. It's the experiences that we can't have. So I think things will have to change. Although I learned when I was at UBC, it takes about 30 years to change a public education curriculum. I don't know if that's still valid, but I thought, well, that's a really long time to
Oh, man.
to make something change. Since AI is changing every day, almost, like dramatic changes right now. It's an exciting time.
It is indeed, and I think the practical hands-on learn by doing environment that we create really allows for that, and there's um, just so much opportunity for growth in that type of setting versus the traditional academic setting. Um,
And
just yeah.
we know how to do experiential learning. We've been doing that for since the beginning. That is our trademark. And I've been to I've been to very high level trauma training courses where people advertise doing experiential learning, and it's not well done. It's poorly done because many people don't understand how to create an experience that's meaningful and matters, and how to debrief that experience and how to tie it to the theory. That's really what you have to do in experiential learning. So I'm bragging away, but it's something we do the best
Yeah.
in the world.
Yeah.
That's really bragging. At least
Yeah.
in Canada.
Well, that's just it, and I'm sure there's other programs out there that are more practical, hands-on, and engaging, like we're speaking to about Rhodes programs. But we're just highlighting, I think, yeah, the areas in which I think we really shine in and do really well that are not a lot of other institutions or programs do as potentially as well, or due to that similar type of, yeah, environment that really is such a fertile ground for learning, growth, reflection, understanding, and so on, for the benefit of them as a human first and foremost, but then also them as a helper in the field. And that's what I keep coming back to for Rhodes. That's why I personally chose to go to Rhodes Wellness College versus my other options in terms of what was available, because I was very much like a tactical, hands-on, engaged, conversational learner, and that's what the classes were almost every day, in addition to academic work and papers and so on, to also support my learning alongside that. So it's a nice balance, and I think to round this point off, education, to your point, is going to need to change to be even more learn by doing versus learn by just researching and having all the information there that we can get in an instance, instead of 60 years ago, there being an encyclopedia that we had to go find in the proper spot to find this piece of information that we're trying to refer to.
Well
So
said. And you weren't even alive 60 years ago.
I don't think so.
Well, not in this life, in this body.
You know me, super spiritual, probably, but in a different form.
Before we close off, I want to plug the new owner of Rhodes College. Well, he's not that new anymore. When I was ready to retire, which of course I haven't done yet, I was really hesitant. I didn't want to turn the school over because it was my baby. I don't have kids. It was my baby. And Benjamin Calling came along, and he was the guy. He has proven himself to be, I mean, he's corny as anything. He is so wise, and he's like an Energizer bunny and knew nothing really about this particular industry, but he's just so good at his job, and selling the ideas that I really believe in. And he's just done a spectacular job. I couldn't be. I was. It's like a dream come true. Honestly, he's just an amazing human being, and he really believes in the values that the school was founded on, and he's kept solid with those. So I'm very happy, and I can just do what I want now, which is teach drama, basically. So don't have to do all the other stuff. Yeah, I just wanted to say that before we closed off.
Yeah, don't worry. He always listens to these at length.
Oh, no. Well, Ben.
So he'll he'll have a good chat with you soon.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad I said good things about him then.
And you're right. Our values are clearly listed at rhodescollege.ca in terms of what we stand for, how we act and show up, as a staff. In addition to, I think, many of our students and graduates as well, that we're closely attuned to those values, and then also, somewhat similar morals and beliefs, in that we're trying to make the world a better place, as corny as it might sound.
I love it. That is true. We're doing our best to make the world a better place. I'm happy with that.
Exactly.
And it all started in a prison. The idea. So let's give Correctional Service of Canada a little plug there too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's so funny that Bea's dream, your dream, therefore, turned into this Rhodes dream that is a reality.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so grateful to be a part of it, and to continue forward with that, and with your involvement still in teaching trauma with the school. And it makes sense in why you don't want to retire, because you enjoy this work so much, and it'd be hard to stop doing it entirely, is what I'm hearing.
Very true. It's a fun place to work.
I concur. And I think on that note, we'll close up here momentarily. But Bea, do you have any other last words to mention before we kind of close up and say a few pieces?
I was talking about Ben earlier, but I just want to say that the other thing he does really spectacularly well is choose his people. Mm. And there's you, and I think some of the other people you've interviewed on this podcast, but they are really spectacular, very, very skilled and ethical, wonderful human beings. He's really got a gift for that. So I feel very lucky to be part of this organization, even though it's not my organization anymore.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. And I think to a compliment to him, I think he sees a lot of himself in other people. And he says, I see a lot of you in me, and I'm really happy with the way I am, in a sense. I want you to be a part of this too. And I think we can really see eye to eye on so many things. And you're gonna work out well in this environment, because good energy sees good energy, and we slowly build that good energy out to make a wonderful impact on others, and build that good energy and bring it into society, and
Yeah.
all parts of the walking and living world. So
Okay,
yeah,
we're corny too.
pardon me.
Said you and I are corny as well.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's funny how full picture it is, but yeah, I'll just close up by saying, anyone that's interested in Rhodes, you can see rhodescollege.ca. You can also see Rhodes Counseling Center at rhodescollege.ca in the event that you're looking for any kind of counseling services online to anyone across Canada, for example. You can check out my stuff, which will be in the show notes below in terms of what I'm up to as well. And if you want to connect with me, that will be there as well about our programs. And yeah, we really wish you all really well and enjoy your day. Thank you.